just like they have a camp within a camp at Camp X-Ray. They'll have a real Doppler radar system, and then right next to it, they'll have another array that they claim is under federal control that he claims is a HARP antenna to manipulate weather. And I remember him telling me this 10 years ago, and he gave me a lot of good info, but I'd still kind of roll my eyes. Now, the exact arrays he was trying to show me diagrams of are what are in the Daily Mail with Dubai saying they can control the weather. Looks just like them. And it's just, I can't handle it anymore. I mean, we're living in total crazy land. There's a giant military-industrial complex that's gotten away with whatever it wants to do. They think they're God. They're playing God. They've got all sorts of life extension systems we're never going to get a hold of. The general public's completely slobbering and dumbed down. You know, those that aren't awake are that way. Folks that are awake, I don't know what we're going to do. But anything else, Andrew?
Well, yes. Also, if people still have a television, you know, the old kind with antenna, it's called the Weller method. You turn your TV to channel 2, and you take it a little bit off the channel and all that, and you'll see as it sparkles. As a tornado-producing storm approaches, it will cause the screen to go white, and you know it for sure to hit the storm cell or outside of the weather telling you.
Well, actually, I was going back 65, 70 years ago. I saw where some of the first devices were TV tubes that weathermen would use to, like, track things. That was some of the early warning systems was television tubes that they manipulated. I've actually read that.
Channel 2 is what you go on using an antenna, the old-fashioned kind, not cable or satellite, but have it on a TV antenna and Channel 2, and then you adjust your contrast and all that so you see sparkles on your screen. But then when that tornado producing comes in, your screen will turn white, hit the cellar. You got that tornado clouds right there.
All right, good job. Appreciate that, Andrew. Ron, Tom, Verna, Julie, we're going to get to all of you. We've got a special guest coming up, though. But we'll get to your calls while he's on with us. We're going to cover the media and where it's going in this country. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Okay, your phone calls on a host of issues are coming up. I'm going to get to more of what's happening right now in the stock market. The admission that, yes, we're going into a depression, basically. We're going to be breaking all of that down today. But there's a guy I really wanted to get on air because, I don't know, for a year and a half or so, maybe longer now, he has been airing my radio show on one of his radio stations live, and then on the other one, he has been replaying it on night. And he has me up against Rush Limbaugh on his other station. He has a long bio, but he is certainly a very interesting character. And he's the model of local broadcasting that we had in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. That's all dying out. That's going away. And the big majors will come in for 2-3 years, sell advertising for $5 a spot to bankrupt all their competition, then buy them up. And I'm not for monopolies. You know, we've seen the big three out there, now the big two, a decade ago or so, couldn't own more than a certain amount of stations in each market. Now it's basically unlimited, and it's destroyed local diversity on local radio at a time that we really, really need it. That's why I've encouraged citizen journalists to start their own local news shows, their own local newspapers. And there's been a birth of those. But there's nothing like the professionals from broadcast, AM and FM, UHF, VHF, many of them now bagging groceries, many of them mowing lawns, many of them teaching Sunday school or public school. Many of these incredible talents. I mean, I remember growing up in Dallas, you could go through the dial and just hear so many interesting personalities, local news. And most stations don't even do that now, or they just regurgitate national news. But Michael Zwirling, when I've been out in the area that he lives in California, Santa Cruz and surrounding areas, you talk about a wide diversity of local shows. He's only got really, I guess, a few syndicated that he carries, and I'm honored to be one of them. But I wanted to get Michael on because when I went to Talkers, he was there, and I, of course, went out and spoke to the KSCO listeners at 2 events that were sellout crowds, 900 at each event. In fact, some were above 900. It was capacity, standing room only, both nights. And I was asking him, the decades and decades you've owned this station, how have you survived and thrived when other stations and programmers, in most cases, cannot figure out how to do it? And Michael's been extremely successful. And the model he went with is basically similar to our model. I sell books, I sell videos, I sell water filters. I have a retail store. So I have my own products, and I tell listeners, I think these are really good products. These are really good films, good T-shirts, spread the word. If you believe in what we're doing, buy these. If you like this broadcasting, vote with your dollars. I also tell folks, support your local AM and FM affiliate. If you're listening to the show there, sponsor them if you're a local business owner. Or support those local sponsors. Let them know, I'm buying my tile from you, or my carpet from you, or my car from you, or I'm going to your restaurant because you're on this local station that carries shows I believe in. There's a reason the White House is openly saying they want to shut down talk radio and free speech and want internet kill switches, because it's a place you can call into. Talk radio is a long format. And so we can take little stories from around the country or overseas and show a pattern. We can break that regional news control. But if you don't have local radio, there's no way for it ever to get out to you unless you happen to be listening to a show like this one. But when I was out in KSCO, they said, do you know they're making the local famous apple juice place put fluoride in their apple juice now? And I said, yes, I've seen that. And I ended up talking to folks that are involved in apple production that work at the station. They were saying, and you're aware of the carbon taxes going in. And yes, I was aware of California issues. But see, I can cover that sometimes. But local, they're the folks that can organize people politically to stand up for themselves, and that is not what the establishment wants. So, amongst other things, I brought Michael Zwirling on today for a message directly to AM and FM broadcast license owners, managers, program directors to listen to the model. Your radio station shouldn't just be selling coffee mugs and T-shirts. You should have bookstores. You should have all your hosts doing YouTube videos and plugging your online stream. I mean, I'm going to give you some of my information that seems common sense to some, but not to others. And then Zwirling is going to give you some of his inside knowledge to help our radio stations. But even if you're not picking up my radio broadcast or other great Genesis shows, or some of the shows that Michael Zwirling syndicates, by the way, through Genesis, that doesn't matter. This is how you can really fund your radio station and then build it. Because Mr. Zwirling's #1 on his stations in his area, in those key cities. He's #1. He's got shows, many of them that are #1, and he's done it against the big guys, and this is the model. You can't beat the big ad agencies blocking you out because you're not an insider. You can't get at the table. You can't do that. There are ways to grow your station, to A, survive, and then B, grow, and C, thrive and dominate. And this goes into the alternative media. It goes into so many things. And so I hope that all the audience will stay with us as we cover it, because this affects you and your capacity to call into local radio, your capacity to bring local host information, your capacity to be a focal point. Talk radio is the electronic soapbox. And talk radio pioneered the new media. The systems that talk radio developed, it's the oldest electronic media, but it's also the newest of the old media. And it's only talk radio that still has the giant audiences. Take Coast to Coast AM. Most cities, they have close to half or more of the combined total radio listening system. Take Rush Limbaugh, 22 million listeners conservatively. The biggest news shows now have a couple million. Talk radio is king, and local talk radio needs to be king again. And here I am, a syndicated broadcaster, telling you the inside baseball, because I don't care about, at the end of the day, syndicated radio. I care about truth and information. And I started out, obviously, as a local access TV person in local community activism. Now, Michael Zwirling is president and CEO of Zwirling Broadcasting System, Ltd., chairman and CEO of ZBS Radio Associates, Ltd., worked as a television news anchor for Cable 7 of Santa Fe in Santa Cruz. In '73, taught radio, TV production, and built educational FM radio stations for Salinas Union High School in '74. Started industrial video production business in '74. Made training and promotional videos for companies and government agencies until '85. Built custom home for personal residence and video studio in '79. So he's a trailblazer. Bleeding liberal heart quickly healed as direct result of being told by government that materials what materials and colors to be used, became interested in real estate investment shortly thereafter, obtained California real estate broker license in '85, established Michael Zwirling Investments real estate brokerage business, which continues until now. So a great American entrepreneur, acquired KSCO Radio on July 31st, 1991, a station he'd listened to as his family was a little kid, traveled and moved into Santa Cruz, and vowed to build long-neglected sleeping giant station into premier, active, vibrant news and information medium for Monterey Bay area. Established ZBS Radio in January of '98 to develop innovative method to market nutritional supplements to public using educational empowerment properties of talk radio medium, InfoWarsTeam.com. He is the team leader of the entire operation for radio stations, for listeners, for everybody to survive and thrive. We've done it. He's done it. Michael Zwirling, quite a 10-minute intro, but thank you for joining us today, sir.
I can't believe it. Did I do all those things? Technology is absolutely incredible, Alex. Have you been watching my facial expressions? Because we're on video Skype.
Absolutely. You're here being simulcast at prisonplanet.tv. Michael, tell us about yourself. I mean, that magic in your eyes when you talk about being a little kid and first listening to KSCO when you moved there, and all the Doris Day stories, the Clint Eastwood stories, the Ronald Reagan stories. I mean, you're really an interesting guy. But then also describe to people how you're able to not just survive, but absolutely kick the big monopoly men's hind ends.
Well, in a nutshell, it's called leveraging your audience. Traditionally, Alex, what radio and television stations do is sell advertising time to businesses who want to reach the audience that the radio or TV station reaches, okay? And I don't know, 14, 15 years ago, sort of by accident, I stumbled upon a different way to do it. And in fact, I should back up a little bit because I always wanted to own that particular station, KSCO AM 1080 in Santa Cruz. When I was a youngster growing up, it wasn't a station that too many people would listen to, because too many young people would listen to, because it was an old fogey music station. You know, they played Mantovani music and so forth, but it was the only radio station that was in town. So I used to hang out there as a kid and dream about being a DJ there someday, or better yet, being a talk show host. Because we had this great radio station that was a trailblazer in the San Francisco Bay Area called KGO. It's an amazing talk radio station. At least it was for many, many years. Now it's gone downhill, and it's really very sad what's happening to KGO and a lot of the other big stations. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. But in the 1960s, I had an opportunity to do the high school radio show, time that was made available by the owner, general manager of KSCO, the station that I now own. And it was the most important thing in my life. And one day after the what I thought was the best program I and the high school staff had ever done, the manager walked in and said, "Zwirling, you're through." And I said, "Why?" He said, "You don't make a fart noise on KSCO." Fart noise? It was a raspberry. Anyhow, long story short, I vowed right then and there on January 4th, 1967, that someday I was going to own that station and turn it into an amazing interactive communications vehicle. And in 1991, what is that? 24 years later, I got that opportunity. So we're celebrating our 20th year of being a voice for everyone in a media and an industry that seems to be going the opposite direction really, really fast. You know, instead of serving local communities, it seems to be shunning local communities as the big companies take over. When I was able to acquire KSCO in 1991, the rule at the time was only one AM and one FM station could be owned by the same owner in a given market. A year or two later, it changed to 2 and 2. And in 1996, the Communications Act of 1996 that absolutely destroyed diversity and localism in the United States of America made it possible as you said earlier in the intro, it's